So, you're in DevOps or cloud infrastructure, right? Then you already know the CKA is the certification to get. But man, it is famously difficult. In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you the exact strategy that will help you ace this thing, hopefully on your very first try.
So why even put yourself through it? Well, it kind of starts with this number, over $140,000. Yep, that's the average salary for someone with a CKA in the US. That's a pretty serious premium, and it just proves how valuable this cert is out there in the real world.
But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. The first-time pass rate, it's only around 60%. And you know what? Most people who fail don't actually lack the knowledge. They lack a strategy. They just run out of time. And that is the exact problem we are going to solve today.
So this brings us right to the core question, doesn't it? We know this thing is valuable, but we also know it's incredibly tough. So what's the actual, actionable strategy that separates the people who pass from everyone else? Let's break it all down. All right, here's our game plan. We're going to tackle this in 5 key parts. First, we'll get to know the exam itself. Then, I'll give you the core strategy. This is the secret sauce. After that, we'll get into the must-know commands, a full study plan, and we'll wrap up with how to avoid those common, painful traps.
Let's dive right into part 1, the CKA exam challenge. You know, to pass this exam, you first got to know your opponent inside and out.
So what makes the CKA so different from pretty much every other IT certification out there? It's this. There are 0 multiple-choice questions. This exam is 100% hands-on. They literally drop you into a live terminal and say, okay, fix this or build that, all against a ticking clock.
And here are the key stats you absolutely need to know. You get exactly 2 hours. In that time, you've got to complete somewhere between 17 and 25 tasks. You need a 66% to pass, and get this, it's open book. You have full access to the official Kubernetes documentation. Now, that might sound easy, but it really means speed and efficiency are just as important as knowing the material cold.
All right, this brings us to what I believe is the single most important part of this entire explainer. This is your core passing strategy. I call it the 55% rule, and honestly, it should dictate exactly how and what you study.
So, the exam is split into 5 domains, but they are not created equal. Not even close. Just look at this breakdown. Troubleshooting, all on its own, is a massive 30% of your total score. And right behind it is cluster architecture. That's stuff like managing the control plane and nodes, at 25%.
And this is the magic right here. This is the heart of the whole strategy. If you truly master just those top 2 domains, troubleshooting and cluster architecture, you have already locked down 55% of the total score. Just think about that for a second. You're already almost at the 66% passing mark, and we haven't even talked about the other 3 topics yet. Okay, so knowing what to study is only half the battle, right? To pass this thing, you have to be fast. And that's where your professional toolkit comes in. These are the absolutely essential time-saving commands you need on exam day. Seriously, these are non-negotiables. First thing you do when you start, set your alias. Alias K equals kubectl. It'll save you precious seconds over and over. Second, please never write YAML from scratch. Use the die run flag to generate a template and then just modify it. Third, and this is so critical, always switch your cluster context at the start of every single question. It's the easiest, most painful way to fail. And fourth, use kubectl edit to modify resources on the fly. It is so much faster than deleting and recreating. So we've got our strategy and we've got our tools. Now let's put it all together into a clear plan that's going to take you from day 1 of your prep all the way to seeing that pass on your screen. Here's a 6-week plan that works. You'll kick things off with fundamentals and that big 25% domain, architecture. Weeks 3 and 4, you can knock out the smaller domains. But look at week 5. It's an entire week, an intensive dedicated just to troubleshooting, our 30% beast. And then week 6 is all about putting it together, doing mock exams and just training for speed. Now, on exam day, you can't just wing it. You need a tactic. I highly recommend the 2-pass strategy. In your first pass, for the first 80 minutes or so, you only answer the questions you know you can do quickly. If anything takes you more than about 8 minutes, you flag it and you move on. This builds confidence and banks easy points. Then, in your second pass, you use that last chunk of time, the last 40 minutes, to go back and attack those harder, flagged questions. Finally, let's talk about how to avoid failure. This all comes down to mastering that incredibly important troubleshooting domain and learning how to sidestep the common traps that cause even really well-prepared people to fail.
Okay, listen up, because I can almost guarantee you are gonna see these patterns on the exam. You need to burn these into your brain. If you see a pod stuck in pending, your mind should immediately go to scheduling problem. Check resource requests, taints, things like that. If it's in a crash loop back off, you've got to check the logs of the previous container. A node that's not ready, it's almost always the kubelet service that needs a good old restart. Here it is, your final checklist of what not to do. The single most fatal mistake you can make is not switching your cluster context for each question. The biggest time waster is getting bogged down on one hard problem. Forgetting your aliases is just giving away free time. And look, ignoring the troubleshooting domain or not using that killer.sh simulator that comes with your exam purchase, well, that's just not an option if you're serious about passing. You know, when it really comes down to it, passing the CKA isn't about being a walking encyclopedia of every Kubernetes feature. It's about knowing what matters most. It's a test of your strategy, not just your knowledge. So I guess my question to you is, now that you have the strategy, how are you going to apply it?